Today I'm going to show you how to replace the controller on an Asmoke Pellet Grill. And if it's easy enough for me to do it, you can do it too.
This repair is pretty easy to do, and all you need is a small flathead screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver, and some wire cutters. Always remember, safety first, make sure it's unplugged from the power and cool before you start. We're going to be getting into the guts of this thing, and I don't want anybody to get electrocuted. We're going to move the 4 screws holding the access panel on the side, and then put them in a safe place so you don't lose them. And I also don't suggest doing this on your deck, or you're going to need to make an extra trip to the hardware store. Remove the side panel, then remove the 2 screws holding the controller in place. Wiggle the controller out, and the original connectors are zip tied together. You'll get a little bit more working room if we cut that zip tie. With those out of the way, you can use your small flat-headed screwdriver to unscrew and remove the 2 wires connected to the probe port.
And if there's anything that I've learned from watching my dad fix things, it's always take a picture before you take it apart.
That picture will come in handy if you ever need to know how it was connected before you messed with it. We've got a good view of the wires, so we're good to go. The instructions said to remove all of the connectors and then plug them all back in, but I prefer the one at a time method, so that way we never get them mixed up. For example, if we disconnect the black and white connector, we're going to want to hook up the black and white connector on the new controller so we keep everything together. Now, these connectors don't unclip, but they should come loose if you pull them hard enough. Now, a few of them had pins that were out of place that needed to be adjusted slightly before I could get the connectors back together. But other than that, it was pretty easy to do. So before you know it, you're going to have all 4 connectors plugged back in. Plugging in the probe wires back was the trickiest part. It's a bit tight, but with some patience, you can get the wires back into the clips and screwed down tight. Now that we have everything together, I want to test it before I get everything buttoned back up. So I carefully put the controller back in place and then secured it with a screw. When I plugged it back in, I was instantly greeted with an error. I mean, what does ERP even mean? Then I realized the controller was set to high. So I decided to turn it off and then back on again, and we were back in business. So you want to check to make sure that the auger, stoker fan, and igniter all work. Then I wanted to check the probe, since that was what all this fuss was about in the first place. It shows a temperature, which is a really good sign, and it changes temperature when I hold the probe. If you notice any problems, you'd want to go back to all the connectors and make sure they're connected properly and fully seated. But since mine is working, I'm going to go ahead and zip tie the connectors back together to keep them from touching anything important. Then I carefully put the controller back on and secured it with 2 screws. You'll notice that the connectors are tucked in the corner and away from the fans. They're able to move freely, so that way we won't have any problems in the future. And I sealed it back up, and I redid the preheat test at 350 degrees, and it made it in half the time. I call that success.
So I'm super excited. Replacing the controller made it heat up faster and made the meat probe work. Every step of it was worth it.